up here. Y excelente. Y muy buenos días, buenos días. ¿Cómo están todos? ¿Cómo están todos?
Bien.
¿Bien? ¿Bien?
Bien.
Okay. Aunque es lunes, even though it is Monday. Bueno, vamos a empezar. We're going to start with a warm-up video just for listening because it is super, super easy. For some of you, it's going to be almost too easy, but it's a good warm-up video. The one thing I want to remind you, because some of you in this group have not really done a lot with me gusta yet, is when you hear me gusta es I like, but literally it means a thing. One thing is pleasing to me, okay? There is no verb in Spanish that means to like, which is an odd fact. To like as a verb does not exist in Spanish, so you have to say a thing is pleasing to somebody. And she's going to talk about things that are pleasing to her, but she's going to talk about them one by one. So in general, you're going to hear me gusta. The other phrase that means I like is me gustan. But if you like more than one thing, it's me gustan. If you like one thing, it's me gusta. This thing is pleasing to me. Okay. Y es para comenzar. This is just for warming up your ears. It doesn't really have any bearing on our lesson today, but it has some interesting and exotic drinks in it. So that's why we're going to actually listen to it because, see. Okay, momentito. I need to enable my sound. Y vamos a ver. Sí, super fácil. Super easy. She's going to talk really, really slowly. So this will be warming up your ear for practicing later in this hour.
A mí me gusta el tequila.
Me gusta el tequila. I like tequila. And that one thing, tequila, yeah. Literally, it is not I like, but tequila is pleasing to me. That's the way she says it. The to me is that little word me. And actually, she pairs it up with a mí to say I really like. A mí me gusta makes it more emphatic than just me gusta. We can use me gusta by itself. Yeah, grammatically correct. But by throwing in the a mí me gusta, she makes it a little more emphatic. Es como decir en inglés, so me gusta, I like, pero I really like, or I like, making it more emphatic. Yeah, we do that with our voice sometimes in English, is throwing in that extra phrase at the beginning, a mí. A mí me gusta el tequila, pero.
Pero hoy tú vas a ver.
You're going to see.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You're going to see 5.
Bebidas.
You're going to see 5 drinks.
Mexicanas muy buenas.
Y son bebidas específicas de origen mexicano. These are specifically Mexican drinks, which is why we're using this for a warm-up. Y hay dos que sí me encantan. There are 2 here on this list that I really love.
Hola, yo soy Andrea. Yo soy mexicana. ¡Arriba! Mexicana. Hoy yo voy a hablar sobre 5 bebidas.
And I want you to notice what she did. She did a little thing with your hands. This, like in almost all Spanish-speaking countries, is a real thing. Para que sepan, so you know. This is something that people often do. It's a hand gesture. And when they talk about drinking, and not necessarily alcoholic, but any kind of drink, you'll see people do this. So just know that, los gestos, G-E-S-T-O-S, gestos, gestures are a thing. And when people talk about drinking, they often do this with their hands. So, yeah.
Muy buenas y mexicanas.
Bebidas buenas y mexicanas.
5
Good Mexican drinks.
Mexicanas.
5 Mexican drinks.
Número 5. La michelada.
Michelada has no translation. Michelada.
La michelada tiene cerveza.
She's talking about ingredients.
Cerveza.
It has beer.
La michelada tiene
It has
limón. Limón.
Well, that might be lemon or lime.
La
It depends. There's some places where they use lima for lime and some places where they use lima for lemon, pero depende. Yeah, lemon goes in everything almost in Mexican food. Okay.
Tiene sal.
Sal has salt.
Sal.
So lots of tiene. It
michelada
has.
tiene chile. Chile.
Como Tabasco, yeah.
Yo tomo micheladas.
And notice we could say bebo micheladas, but tomar to take is frequently used for eating and drinking. And you're going to get a video about that I think we're going to come up with that for homework. But tomo is used for eating and drinking. Think tomar does mean take, literally, but it gets many extra meanings in Spanish. And think of it as like when the Brits say, we take tea at 4. What they're saying is we drink our tea at 4:00, right? So think of it in that respect of take, meaning you're ingesting, okay? Toma.
En la playa.
Tomo micheladas en la playa.
Uf. Cuando yo tengo mucho calor.
And notice, tengo calor is not the same as hace calor. Hace calor talks about what the weather makes. Yeah, what kind of weather it's making, the conditions of the weather. But tengo calor makes it personal, my perception of the atmosphere. When we talk about people being hot, it's got to be tengo calor. I have heat. I know. No tiene sentido. It makes no sense in English, but that is the way they express it. People's experience of the temperature is tener, right? But the weather it is actually doing outside is hacer, which is going to be our focus later today. Lots of uses of hacer, right? But tengo calor, I feel hot. Okay, vale.
My friend says caliente, and he's
Oh,
Hispanic.
okay. Pues, okay, cuidado. Careful with that caliente. Caliente is great for describing temperature of your drink. Caliente is great for talking about está caliente. Never estoy, never I am,
Okay.
because estoy caliente. Cuidado, careful. Estoy caliente means I'm horny. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, who speak English, and I go, oh, estoy caliente. And people look at them like, good, what an icky thing to say. Just, you're waiting at the bus stop, like too much information, TMI. Yeah. So caliente, it does mean hot, but we have to be careful what verbs we use it with. Yeah. Okay.
Especially when we're like,
Yeah. Tengo
Dinners.
calor. Yeah. So we'll talk a little about some of that. Okay.
Yo
Okay, sorry.
No. Está bien. Good.
michelada. Uf.
Tomo micheladas.
La michelada.
Michelada.
Está fría.
Está fría.
Fría.
Michelada está fría. It is a cold drink. Está fría. Está fría. It is a cold drink. Okay. So in the hot weather, it's a cold drink to have. Está fría.
Bien. Número 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Número 4. Champurrado. ¡Champurrado! ¡Ra! El champurrado tiene maíz.
Maíz, corn.
Maíz y chocolate chocolate, el champurrado tiene chocolate y agua, agua y azúcar y canela.
Canela, canela, cinnamon. Ok, la canela es un ingrediente común en muchas bebidas mexicanas, sí, la verdad, sí, canela. Cinnamon frequently used. Canela.
Canela, champurrado. Yo tomo champurrado los domingos. Domingo.
She's saying that she has this on Sunday. And notice this is something that is actually cooked over a fire, okay? And, there's no translation for the names of a lot of these drinks. We wouldn't have like an English phrase for it. They are called what they are called. Champurrado. Champurrado is just always champurrado, siempre. Okay, vale.
A mí me gusta el champurrado.
And notice she's talking about one thing, this type of thing, el champurrado. Me gusta el champurrado. And when we talk about a general category of this type of drink, we do use that word el champurrado. Me gusta el champurrado. When you say you like an item, you always use the word the with that. Pair it up. Me gusta el champurrado. Me gusta el té. Me gusta el café. Me gusta la leche. We always use an el or a la after gustar when we talk about a category of things. You say you like this thing in general, we use the el or la. In English, we don't use the el or the la, the word. I like milk. I like tea. Pero en español, we use the word the with that item always. So fíjense, notice that. Okay.
Champurrado. Número 3. 1, 2, 3. 3. Agua de Jamaica.
Jamaica.
¿Qué tiene el agua de Jamaica?
What does it have? And she's saying, what does it have? You might also, when we're talking about ingredients, people can use this verb tiene, has, because, it has. So tiene can talk about ingredients. Also keep in mind, people, when they talk about ingredients in food, they might use, instead of the verb tiene, they might use lleva, double L-E-V-A, lleva. Lleva. Okay. So they're interchangeable to talk about ingredients of food and drinks. So people might say, tiene agua, it has water in it, or lleva agua, lleva. El, the double L-E-V-A, E-V-A, lleva. And they're interchangeable. People can use either tiene or lleva. Okay. Vale. Okay, Jamaica.
¿El agua de Jamaica tiene uva? No.
Uvas, grapes? No, no tiene uvas.
¿El agua de Jamaica tiene moras?
Blueberries, moras? No.
¿El agua de Jamaica tiene flores? Sí. Flor. Una flor. El agua de Jamaica tiene esta flor, Jamaica, y agua y azúcar. Azúcar. A mí me gusta tomar agua de Jamaica.
And notice, remember, we use gusta with a verb too. So you can say you like a thing or you like to do something. You like to drink. Me gusta tomar. Or me gusta beber. Igual, same thing. Me gusta tomar. Me gusta el Jamaica. La Jamaica, perdón.
Número
Agua de
2.
Jamaica.
1, 2. Número 2. Agua de horchata.
Horchata.
Mm.
La
El
horchata.
agua de horchata tiene agua, tiene leche, leche, tiene canela, canela,
Cinnamon. Sí, sí.
tiene arroz, tiene
Arroz, sí.
arroz.
Rice. Sí.
Y tiene azúcar. Azúcar. A mí me gusta tomar agua de horchata y comer tacos. Sí, agua de horchata y tacos. ¡Pum! Tan, 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 tan. ¡Ja! Número 1. Número 1. Vino. El vino.
Wine.
Vino. Vino. Ujú. Vino mexicano. A mí me gusta el vino mexicano. Mexicano. El vino mexicano es muy, muy bueno. Yo tomo vino todo el año. Todo el año yo tomo vino. ¡Salud!
Salud.
Oh gosh.
Y
Sí, sí, pero directamente de la botella no. Straight out of the bottle, no. Directamente de la botella, no.
¿a ti te gusta el vino?
And notice again, when we say this category of things is pleasing to me, we always use the el. In English, I like wine en general, in general, pero en español, the wine, meaning all of it, all types of it, is pleasing. That's the gusta part. To me, that's the me. Or here she says, you like wine. She flips it, right? Y a ti te gusta el vino. You like wine.
¡Salud!
Salud. Yeah, cheers. Salud. Muy, wow.
Actually, I never tried that Mexican one.
Yeah. Ella es actriz, as you can well imagine. She is an actress. And so she puts a lot of gusto into that.
Is it good, the Mexican wine? I've never tried it.
See, hay viñedas. There are vineyards. Sí, sí.
They're
Okay.
not famous for it, right?
Well, I think because we have so much competition from California, it's just more common to see California wines on when we go out places. But of course, they do make local wines there. Probably if you went to a lot of countries, there would be local wines. Depending. Okay. We have a little question that we're caliente. Yeah. You might hear when you talk about weather, está caliente, it is hot. You might, yeah. But cuidado, to say that I feel hot, never use caliente with estar to talk about yourself or a human being, yeah. A human being feeling warm uses tener. Es muy importante. That is a really important thing. Sometimes it's kind of tough because these things don't translate well. So we kind of need to know which verbs to use. We're going to actually we will jump into weather. I wasn't going to do it in this order, but I'm going to now, okay? A ver. Sometimes we're going to start now to talk about when we use hacer. When we use hacer. And hacer can be used for lots of things. One of the things it can be used for is talking about the weather. But notice And if you had if you listen to the more advanced video, this was right smack in the middle. When we talk about the weather, hacer is one of three verbs, and we're going to go exclusively to hacer in a little bit. But right now we're mixing up hacer with estar and haber, and you'll notice tener is not in this mix, right?
Mhm.
The video, she said, cuando tengo calor, when I'm hot, cuando tengo frío, when I'm cold. When people feel hot or cold, we use tener, okay? Tener frío, tener calor. For example, tengo frío cuando voy a Canadá. I am cold when I go to Canada. Tengo frío en enero. I am cold in January. Tengo frío cuando la temperatura está a 30 grados. I am cold when the temperature is at around 30. Okay? When we talk about people having that sensation experience, it's tener. But when we talk about the weather, we might use any one of three verbs. These three verbs are probably the most commonly used verbs to talk about the weather. But remember, in Spanish, the weather always gets a singular kind of verb because the weather makes a certain event. Yeah. So we can never have a yo conjugation to talk about the weather. We can never have a nosotros conjugation to talk about the weather because we don't make the weather, and I sure don't make the weather, and you too. You can never have a tú conjugation to talk about the weather. It's always going to be a singular third person, meaning a conjugation that would work with él or ella or usted, because the weather makes something, right? So you'll hear está used with the weather. You'll hear hace used with the weather. You might even hear the form of haber, but the form, you don't recognize it as haber. Haber will be hay, Hay, hay. So with weather expressions, very often we use está or hace or hay to talk about weather. So let's start with that. Bien, sí. ¿Cómo se escribe el tiempo? How do we describe the weather? So these are the three most commonly used verbs, but we do get actual verbs like llover and nevar to talk about precipitation events. Para que sepan, so you know, just so you know. And que tiempo hace is one way of asking about what's the weather like. We may also use this, que clima hace. Clima and tiempo are pretty interchangeable to mean weather. Okay, we might look at this word clima and think it means climate, which it can mean, right? But people often use this to talk about just weather in general. But notice, que clima hace, que tiempo hace, what's the weather making? What's the weather doing? And it's always hace, never hago, never hacemos. It's always hace, see? So we can pair up hace with sol and say hace sol. Okay? Hace sol. We can also say hay sol. There is sun. That makes sense too. If I want to say it is sunny, then I have to flip in the verb está. Está soleado, and I have got to change that word for sol a little bit, okay? To say it's good weather, hace buen tiempo. It makes good weather, literally. Okay? Temperatura, temperature, just plain está works. Okay, bien. And we'll talk about these weather events a little bit later. Okay, let's flip into this. We're going to look at the things that you most frequently hear with hace or está. You might hear either está or hace, and we're going to see a little bit later on, but está or hace a lot with these weather expressions, okay? Hace frío, we just put in a mucho if we want to intensify it for very. Hace mucho frío, hace mucho calor, hace mucho sol, right? But just hace sol if you want to make it plain. Hace mucho viento, hace viento. Hace fresco, it's cool. Just to talk about the weather in general, hace buen tiempo. And notice when we talk about buen tiempo, we have to drop the O off of bueno. Hace buen tiempo. See? Hace mal tiempo. We drop the O off of malo for bad. Hace mal tiempo. We drop the O off of mal. We drop the O off of bueno because they come right in front of the verb. There are a few in Spanish, a few descriptive words, not a lot, but a few that drop the O if they're paired up with a masculine singular. So, hoy hace buen tiempo. Hoy en Arizona, hoy en Scottsdale, hace buen tiempo. ¿Sí? Hoy no hace mal tiempo. No hace mal tiempo. It's not bad weather, okay? You may hear people, instead of hace, use está to say it's cold. Está frío, it's cold. Está caluroso, it's warm, right? Está soleado, it is sunny. So instead of hace sol, está soleado works. Instead of hace calor, está caluroso. That works. Instead of hace frío, está frío. That works. Okay? These are interchangeable terms. So hace is used a lot for the weather, but people may bring in that verb está because remember, never es frío, never es caluroso, never es soleado, right? These are, weather is a very changeable thing. So está is much more frequent to talk about changeable weather conditions. People might even just say, está muy bonito, it's very pretty, meaning it's very nice weather. Okay, so hacer can often be used interchangeably with está for weather events. But está often takes over with adjectives. Often, yeah, right? Hace is paired up with nouns. Frío means the cold, yeah? So, yeah, hace calor, hace sol, hace viento, right? Hace fresco. When we flip exclusively into adjectives, then the verb estar might be favored to talk about weather. Está nublado. Está lloviendo. It is raining. Está nevando. It is snowing. Well, we're not going to use that here very much. Está lloviznando. It is drizzling. Lloviznando looks a lot like lloviendo, right? This is drizzling, meaning not heavy rain, right? Está húmedo. It's humid, right? All of these words, húmedo, nevando, lloviendo, nublando, are more descriptive terms. These two are the ing words, ing, and we have to use estar with these kinds of words. Está seco. It's dry. A descriptive word, right? Está tormentoso. It is stormy. Tormentoso is a descriptive word. So with adjectives, with descriptions, you'll hear está with weather quite a lot. Okay, bien. And sometimes we use I with another word to talk about weather, but we won't use an adjective with I. We'll use a noun with I. So we have to have a thing, a noun, to combine with I. So hace sol is great, but hay sol is also acceptable. There is sun. Literally, there is sun. Hay sol hoy. Okay? Hay nubes. There are clouds. But notice, nubes is clouds. Nublado is cloudy. That's a description. So, está nublado works, but there are clouds. Now, nubes is the thing that are clouds. So we combine that with I. Hay nubes. Hay neblina. There is fog, right? Hay relámpagos or rayos. There is lightning. Hay trueno. There is thunder. All these things, sol, nubes, neblina, rayos or relámpagos, these are all things. Trueno, it's a thing. So, hay trueno. Hay lluvia, there's rain. Hay nieve, there is snow. Hay una tempestad, there is a storm. Hay aguaceros, hay chaparrones, those both mean showers, a downpour of some kind. It's coming down. Hay aguaceros, hay chaparrones. You hear those for weather reports. Showers. Okay? Bien? Okay. So,
Marilyn,
sí, dime.
una pregunta. You may have cleared this up for me. I was watching the video yesterday, the easy video about weather, where she was talking about hacer and I. She used the same example. It's windy for both of them. And I was confused as why it was describing the same thing, but I think you might have just cleared it up for me.
You might hear right, but the good thing to remember is that these three verbs, are the most commonly used for weather. Okay, so some of them, like está and hace, might be like you see on this, and I'll send you this whole file that you see on screen now. Hace and está, like in these examples, are quite interchangeable, right? But not always interchangeable with I. I cannot take, you cannot say ay caluroso or ay soleado. It's got to be ay sol. There is sun. So we have to combine I with a noun very strictly. We have to combine hace with a noun as well. So while it is maybe a little tricky, when we're talking about weather, here are the most frequently used verbs with weather. Hace or está or I. And just the more examples you hear, the easier that becomes. Okay. When we get into actual precipitation events is when we start to see more of a breakaway from hace or I or está. And we actually start to get verbs that seg in. Okay. But the two most common verbs for precipitation that are used are llover or nevar. And remember that llover is a stem changer. So that means llover is the infinitive to rain. But if you want to say it's raining or it does rain, it's llueve. That splits off into a weird vowel change, UE, okay? Llueve. And nevar, to snow, gets again what they call a stem changing, meaning the e from nevar to snow splits off into ie. Neva, it snows. Okay. Lloviznar, drizzling, but really these two, llover and nevar, are the two biggies. Now, llueve and nieva, to make it into it, they don't combine with hace that much, right? Or está that much. Well, they will combine with estar, but we'll see that in a minute. These generally talk about general weather events, okay? So, okay, por ejemplo, we often use right in the middle of the screen, llueve, to talk about a general event. Okay, por ejemplo, llueve mucho llueve mucho en Seattle. It rains a lot in Seattle. We're talking, llueve is often used for a general event, but if you're really talking about an event that's happening in real time, like if you want to express that it is raining and you want to talk about what the weather is doing right now, it is more common to put it into this form, está lloviendo. Está lloviendo. And notice we don't say hace lluvia, right? It becomes this verb. Está lloviendo will be the more frequently used option to talk about a live event. All right, when we're talking in real time. Or if you're a place where it is snowing, está nevando. It's snowing, the live event, right? Okay, let's look at an example. We have llueve mucho en Seattle, and this is what is used more for general conditions. Yeah, general conditions like it rains a lot in Seattle. Okay, so llueve mucho, you can't say llueve to say it is raining right now, but está lloviendo is really more frequently heard for real-time event, whereas llueve is talking about the general condition more. So, por ejemplo, nieva mucho en el norte de Estados Unidos. Again, a general condition. It snows a lot in the northern US. Okay, so llueve, nieva, general conditions. But if we're talking about real time, what is happening, this está lloviendo, because estar always talks, like emphasizes the changeability of a certain condition. This is kind of favored when we're talking about what is really happening as we speak, you could say. Okay, bien? Okay. And remember that when we talk about temperatures, often estamos a 75 grados. It's 75. It might just be está a 75 grados, 75 grados. Está a 75 grados. Estamos a 75 grados. We're at that temperature, or it is that temperature. That works, okay? And if you want to talk about what the weather is going to do, then remember, we put ir a and the infinitive. Va a ser, or va a ser, va a estar, va a, and the weather event. So if you want to put it into the future, ir a and the infinitive. That's what we do. So Hacer can be used with weather, but there are other verbs that will come into weather. Just be aware of that. Bien? Okay? Bien. Okay. Bueno, so estar, hacer, haber. Hacer has a lot of uses for weather. Another use of hacer, and here's where we're really going to do some practice. Now we're going to pull up the screen that you got for homework. Aquí. Bien. Hacer is used a lot to do a certain kind of physical, well, it's used in a lot of contexts. How did you do a kind of physical activity? Okay, so now we're going to be slipping more into hacer mode. Yeah, you did have a video to watch. We use hacer with estar. ¿Qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? And again, estar makes it real live in real time. So what's going on? What are you doing? ¿Qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? ¿Qué haces also works for this. Bien. We can use it with, and here's what we're going to talk about a lot. We use to talk about physical activities like physical movement. You could think like sports related in a way, but not necessarily a game. Yeah, sports that aren't necessarily a game. We use hacer for a lot of sports or physical activities that aren't necessarily a game-oriented thing. But
playing catch or something.
yeah, like hacer yoga, hacer pilates, hacer ejercicio, do exercise, to exercise en inglés, pero hacer ejercicio, hacer natación, to do swimming, right? Hacer surf, hacer karate, hacer snorkel. Okay, bien. And you have this page. Generally, jugar, to play a sport, is used more when we have a something that involves a ball. Yeah. If you've got a sport that involves a ball and playing on teams, then we won't use hacer, right? We'll use a different verb, jugar. Jugar means to play a sport when it involves a ball of some kind. Yeah. But physical activities that are exercise often use hacer. I'm going to give you one more example here. Hacer escalada deportiva. Wow, that is really long. That would be sport climbing, like if you do indoor climbing in a gym. Hacer escalada, that's climbing. Deportiva, sports climbing. So all of these things up here don't involve a little round ball. Okay, so you hear hacer a lot for physical activities. We also use hacer a lot for stuff we do around the house, chores we do, things that are not fun. Yeah, hacer la compra, hacer el mercado, hacer la cama, make your bed, hacer servicio al carro, to do servicing on your car. Okay, so, por ejemplo, we use hacer to talk about these kinds of things. What if I want to say these two people, you got to do something different with hacer. These two people do swimming. Las dos personas, or ellos, what do we do with hacer? Ellos
Hacen
natación. Ellos hacen natación. Ellos hacen natación. Bien, ok. También, ¿cómo se dice they're doing yoga?
Like, los adultos hacen yoga.
Los adultos hacen yoga. Excelente. Los adultos hacen yoga. Ellos hacen yoga. Bien. Okay. You do not hear that turned into like yogar to do yoga. It's hacer yoga. Okay. Ciclismo. Ciclismo. Ellos.
I said, un grupo de mujeres hacen ciclismo.
Ok, el grupo hace ciclismo. Ellos hacen ciclismo, ¿sí? Yo
Would you go
hago ciclismo.
Ciclismos. Would you pluralize that? Would you make that plural? You know, ciclismos.
No, buena pregunta, good question. Ciclismo stays ciclismo.
Yeah.
Cycling is a thing that doesn't change to become plural. Okay.
Mhm.
Ciclismo es ciclismo. So that doesn't change, right? Ciclismo is not a descriptive. Yeah. It doesn't describe, it is a thing and it stays ciclismo. Okay.
Okay.
So hacemos ciclismo. We do cycling. Hago ciclismo. I do cycling. Bien.
They do cycling.
Yeah, but always ciclismo, never plural for ciclismo, right? The thing that can turn plural is the verb form, but not the thing that is ciclismo. ¿Bien? ¿Entiendes? Sí.
Yes.
Bueno, okay. Hacer skate.
Él hace skate.
See, sometimes this is called a patinaje. Sometimes this thing, I'll put this below. Some people like to use el skate. This kind of depends, or el patinaje. Patinaje is like a skateboard, yeah. Or hacer patín, even patín. So there are different terms for that depending on where you are. See, hacer surf.
What do you say if you're doing roller skate? Is it using the same skate too, or what?
Sí, bien, sí. Patinaje. They're more patinaje for skate, like not a skateboard, right? But the shoes that have skates, yeah, patinaje.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, there is a verb patinar, which means to skate, patinar, but there they differentiate between patinar, which is just skating on wheels, and patinar a hielo, skating on ice. And as you can imagine, patinar al hielo, ice skating, is not as common an activity in a lot of Latin America as patinar, just skating on like roller blades or roller skates. Yeah. Roller skates, patinar. Bien. Okay. Bien. So there will be differences here. Hacer surf. We're looking at exams with hacer surf. Some people, some places you will hear surfear. Some places did change surf into an AR verb, surfear. But hacer surf, muy frecuente. Hacer remo, to do rowing. But remar is a verb. So keep in mind, sometimes they change the activity into, instead of hacer remo, some people turn that into a verb, remar, to row. Okay, so you may hear it do double duty. Okay, hacer buceo, to do snorkeling, but you may hear people turn that into a verb that is bucear. So you may hear it used with hacer or as a separate verb. See, depende. And the other little video thing you had talked about these special uses of hacer. Hacer el loco doesn't really mean to make yourself crazy. It means that, like ignoring, yeah. hace el loco. Se hace el loco. Sí, se hace el loco, not paying attention. Bien, sí. Not paying attention, se hace el loco, but se hace el tonto, to play the fool, to be a clown, to be silly. Sí, hace la tonta. Ella hace la tonta mientras los otros trabajan. She acts silly while other people are working. Okay? The kid is acting goofy. Hace el tonto, right? But él se hace el loco cuando su novio le habla. He ignores her when his girlfriend is talking to him, right? Se hacen los locos en su clase de matemáticas. They're just not paying attention when they do math. So those are some verbs that use hacer. Okay, and then we have these weather expressions. I have put that in your slides for you. Okay, bien. Bien. Sí, vamos a practicar. If we're going to practice, and I want to give you some alone time, or not alone time, but time in smaller groups to use these questions. And I think I'm going to give you about 7 minutes, maybe 7 minutos, maybe 7 minutes is about right. ¿Qué tiempo o qué clima hace hoy? Right? So maybe talk in small groups using that. What's the weather like? And then if you want to talk about last week, then we have to change this to past. Here is our past, right? Our past term, and this just makes it past. Oops. Past for hacer. So if you want to use weather in the past, it's instead of hace, it's hacía. Okay. So what's the weather doing today? What did the weather do last week? Yeah. ¿Qué tiempo hace mañana? What's the weather going to be like tomorrow? Bien, sí. ¿Qué tiempo hace en el verano? What's the weather like in
Summer.
summer? Verano, ¿sí? ¿Qué tiempo hace en la temporada del monzón? What's the weather like in monsoon season? Yeah. What's the weather like in monsoon season? Now you're going to be talking about general condition. Yeah. Not what it's doing right now, but what it's like. ¿Qué tiempo hace en diciembre en Minnesota? What's the weather like in December in
Minnesota.
Minnesota? ¿Qué tiempo hace en abril en Nueva York? What's the weather like in April in
New York.
New York? ¿En qué estados llueve mucho? In what states? And here we're talking about U.S. states, okay, to make it easy for you, point of reference. In what states does it
Rain.
rain a lot? Notice now we're talking about llueve, meaning general conditions, right? What it usually does. Llueve is used for what it usually does, not like real time necessarily. En qué estados nieva mucho? And notice we use nieva to talk about general conditions, not that it's snowing right now necessarily, okay? Cuando hay neblina aquí en Arizona? When is it? When is there fog? When is there fog? And neblina is the thing, the noun. So we combine it with I, not hace. So that one uses an I. And donde no hace mucho sol. Where isn't it very sunny? So this is, we're making it a negative. Where isn't it very sunny? Okay, Bien? All right. And I think about 7 minutes, and I'll put those questions in the Zoom rooms with you. Está bien? Is that good?
Mhm.
See?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I want to give you a little time to play with, I say with weather. Y a ver. Let me see. I want to have about 3 people per room. Some of you might have 2, but it'll be 1, 0, 2. See, okay, about 7 minutes, 7 minutos. And we'll add, once you hit your join buttons, I'll be able to put that into the Zoom rooms with you. Okay. Tengo que usar mi reloj. Now I got to use my watch and set a countdown timer. A ver. Aquí está. Here it is. Bueno, 2 minutos más. We'll come back and see if they had any hitches or problems with any of these questions. Anything like that. Bien, okay. Okay, vale. Okay. Muy bien. A ver. We'll bring that back in. We were still waiting on a couple of people. We're going to see if you had any questions about that one. Es posible. Maybe sí, quizás no. Maybe yes, maybe no. Depende.
We,
Lot of time.
we actually had a question on how to say correctly, number 2, ¿Qué tiempo hace mañana?
Ah,
We weren't sure if we still use hace in that, or if we, since it's future, we need to use something
Ah.
else.
oh, see. Okay. There are a couple things you might be able to do. Both are acceptable. So the question is, número dos, number two, ¿qué tiempo hace mañana? Notice it's phrased with hace mañana, so you can still use present tense. Present tense can serve the purpose of talking about the here and now. It can also, because of context, or depending on context, and you have to feel your way around the conversation, it can also talk about near future. Okay, so we don't use present tense to talk about a year out from now. That would be weird. But we often talk about, por ejemplo, yo puedo decir, lavo el carro, I'm washing the car. But depending on how that conversation is rolling around, it might mean I'm doing it right now. Or it might mean, I could phrase it as, lavo el carro mañana. And because I've plugged in that word mañana, you know it's not hoy, but mañana. So, ¿qué tiempo hace mañana? What's the weather going to be like tomorrow? ¿Hace sol mañana? Bien. ¿Hace calor mañana? Bien. We could say, va a hacer calor mañana. It's going to make, yeah, that weather condition, va a hacer. But if I plug it into true future, it has to become va a hacer. So I'm going to show you how that looks like on a share screen, because that might be, in terms of auditory, a little bit tough to visualize. And that usually helps. So, número dos, ¿sí? Bien, la pregunta es, ¿sí? ¿Qué tiempo o qué clima hace mañana? If we're talking about the future, we can keep it plain old present tense. Hace calor mañana. Hace calor mañana. And because we've plugged in that word mañana, we know we're putting it out a day, okay? Plain old present tense works for near future. You can also put it into true future tense, which means we use ir plus a plus the infinitive verb, So in that case, it has to look like this. Va a ser calor. If you're going to put it into true future, va a ser. And hacer has to flip into an infinitive form because va a is conjugated, but that second verb is not conjugated. Va a ser calor mañana. So both of those are correct. I would say this is a little more common. Plain old vanilla present tense is more common. Okay? Bien? Is that good?
I was looking up here how it says cálido for warm. Would you say?
No.
No.
No. I know. Wow. There are a lot of words that if you look up in a dictionary, a lot of words related to warm, right? There's caliente, calor, caluroso, cálido. Cálido is used as more of a description. Okay, I'll give you an example of when you might hear cálido. Otra vez, cálido is a word for warm, but you'll hear it more if it's something like this. Por ejemplo, to talk about general conditions, cálido is an expression you may use, but not talking about the here and now. See, por ejemplo, Colombia tiene un clima muy cálido. Colombia has a very warm climate, a very warm, yeah. But if we're talking about the here and now, cálido is not a word you're going to hear come up, right? You might hear Hace calor, right? To talk about the here and now, right? Real time, as it were.
is.
You'll hear either hace calor or está caluroso. You're likely to hear that, but not hace cálido. Yeah. Okay, bien.
Está caluroso means warm.
Warm. Sí, sí, sí. Eso
Oh,
es.
okay.
Sí, sí. Bien.
What is
Otra
está
pregunta.
caliendo? It's getting warmer, it's getting hotter. Está caliendo.
Oh, no.
It is not. Okay.
Sí. Okay. There is a verb calentar, but that's like used for heating up food.
Okay.
Or maybe heating up your room if you've got a furnace or something. Yeah, like that. So we can't turn calor. So yeah, that core word calor can morph into a verb calentar. Va a calentar? Oh, okay, posible, sí. It's going to warm up. Va a calentar. Sí, es posible. Va a calentar. But calentar is usually used for warming up. From va a ser calor. Yeah.
So we can just use hace calor when
Hace-
it hace
hace-
calor when
Hace calor un poquito tarde. It's warm a little bit later. It's just what you're going to usually hear. Yeah.
okay.
Bien. Okay. Otras preguntas. Other questions. Nada?
Nada.
Nada. Okay. I want to talk about one other thing about hace, que es importante, which is important when I'm trying to find my thing, because actually you're going to have some practice with this for next week. One more use of hace, which is really, really frequent. And even with those of you who have been with me for a while, we haven't talked about this a lot. So this is kind of new. But this is something new where you're just going to see it as hace, plain old vanilla hace, not the yo form of hago, not the tú form of haces, not the nosotros form of hacemos. Hace is used a lot to talk about length of time. Okay. And in English, we have different ways of doing that. We'll say for, like, I've been driving for 30 years. Yeah. My kid has been driving for 5 years now. Okay. Meaning that activity has started at some point in the past and it's still going on. We use hace a lot in that circumstance. So let's take a look, but it becomes kind of a little formula where we plug in specific words in specific spots in a specific order. Okay. For this to make sense. So the verb hacer can be used in a number of ways to indicate length of time and action has been taking place. And that it indicates this activity is still going on. It started at a certain period of time, but it's still going on. Okay. So here's a formula we use with hace, and it's always hace, that particular form. Hace, and then we plug in the period of time, and then we got to have that little word que. It just has to be there. And then we can put in any kind of vanilla, plain old present tense verb. So let's look at the example. Hace un año que estudio español. Literally, it makes 1 year. That's what it means. It makes 1 year that I do this activity. Now, in English, we would never translate it to say, it makes a year that I study Spanish, because that would sound just dumb in English. But that is the word order you need in Spanish to convey that idea. I have been studying Spanish for 1 year, and that ing thing doesn't happen with this estudio verb. Okay? It's just the present tense form. So, hace un año que estudio español. Literally, it makes a year that I study Spanish, but we would express that in English as I have been studying Spanish for 1 year.
Pero no puedo hablar hasta hoy.
Oh, no, no es la verdad. No, 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 no. Sí puedes hablar, sí puedes hablar. Yes, you can. Hace un año que estudio. So putting estudio into this present tense means I'm still doing it right now. I started it in this time period I'm naming here. It began, but that action is continuing right now. ¿Entienden? Okay. So hace is in that presente of hace because I started a year ago, but that it's still happening now. All right. And that's why we have estudio, right? I studied it. I began this activity of estudio, I study, a year ago, and I'm still doing it now. That's why estudio is in present tense. I started it in this time period a year ago, and I have presente because I'm still doing it now, right? Right? In English, we do this ing thing, right? But in Spanish, we got this special formula. Hace, time, que, and a present tense, okay? So another example is, hace 2 años que ellas estudian inglés. Literally, it makes 2 years that they are studying English. But in English, we don't say it that way. We say it as they have been studying English for 2 years. They started 2 years ago, and they're still doing it now. Okay? They're still in that process. Okay. I want you to notice something else. We can plug in the word no into this, okay? To make it a negative expression. And look at what happens. It's still hace and a period of time and que. But now if I say no with a verb, it becomes this. Hace un año que no estudio español. I haven't studied Spanish for a year. Hace 2 años que ellas no estudian inglés. Literally, it makes 2 years that they don't study English, meaning they haven't studied English for 2 years. So in other words, this kind of structure is used hace, a period of time, and que with a no to talk about something you haven't done in that, since that period of time. Okay. Bien? And so one of the things you are going to do, you're going to prep for next week is to talk about how long you've been doing something and how long somebody else has been doing something when they're still doing it and how long ago it's been since you've done something else. So let me show you an example. I'm going to create a little slide thing that'll show you that. Unos ejemplos, some examples. Okay. And you'll have some conversation questions to work on that a little bit later. Okay. Vamos a ver. And I'll put up what our big formula is here. Hace, hace 20 años. It makes how many years?
20.
20.
Hace 20 años que monto en bicicleta. I've been riding a bike for
40 years.
20 years. I've been mountain biking in this case for 20 years. Hace 20 años que monto en bicicleta. See, I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm still doing it now. And because the implication is I am still doing this monto en bicicleta right now, I keep that monto in presente, right? All I do is take montar en bici, ride a bike, and I conjugate it to say that I'm the one who's doing it, right? Bien. Okay? Bien. If I want to make it negative, let's pick something that I used to do, but I haven't done it. And I want to talk about how long ago since I stopped that. Okay, por ejemplo, I want to say I haven't done something in a certain, since a certain period of time. Hace 10 años que no hago escalada deportiva. I haven't climbed.
Wow. Did you do that? Really?
Oh, sí.
Ooh.
En 10 años. Oh, en 10 años. I'm mixing. En 10 años.
Years.
I haven't climbed in 10 years.
Wow.
Hace 10 años que no hago escalada deportiva. I haven't climbed in 10 years. Okay, so notice the only difference here is this word no. Okay, bien. So we're going to play around with that a little bit. So knowing that you can make it affirmative, monto en bicicleta, and tell how long you've been doing it. You can make it negative and say, I haven't done this in this amount of time. Yeah, I have done it, but I haven't done it. Okay. Bien, bien. We're going to do a little bit of just recognition.
I'm going to say you're in a tip-top shape, huh? Biking, rock climbing.
Ojalá, I only wish, yeah.
Woo.
Ojalá, I wish I... Bien, okay. Let's take a look at this. We're going to have some useful expressions. And we're going to see how these combine. Un momentito. And sometimes you'll see this as desde hace because sometimes ¿dónde está? ¿Dónde está? Okay. Let me just show you briefly because you'll see this a little bit in the plugin. I'll send you all this information because there's no way you'll remember it all off the top of your head. Sometimes, if I flip that hace with the time into the back a part of the sentence, it'll become not just hace, but desde hace. This is when I flip the order. Okay, that's all you need to remember. And I'll send you all these little screens so that you know. Okay, we're going to see if we can plug in a period of time. Can you see the screen with the little hourglass? See?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to see if you can just distinguish what makes sense. What makes sense, like as an answer. This is just plugging in information of using hace and time expressions. Hace and time expressions. Okay? Bien. So let's take a look. How long ago?
¿Cuánto tiempo hace?
¿Cuánto tiempo hace? How much time does it make? That's the question. ¿Cuánto tiempo hace? Just notice how these combine. how do we say, ooh, a long time ago? And notice this is a fragment. It's just going to use hace. A long time ago is going to be
Hace mucho tiempo.
hace mucho tiempo, not un largo tiempo, a long time, like you might think. A short time ago becomes
Hace poco
Hace poco
tiempo.
Poco tiempo.
hace poco tiempo.
Poco
Notice
tiempo.
these all use hace with a period of time. A minute ago becomes
Hace un minuto.
hace un minuto, because it has to be that shorter un. 5 minutes ago becomes
Hace 5 minutos.
5 minutos.
hace 5 minutos. Bien. 3 hours ago. Notice we say ago for this. 3 hours ago becomes,
Hace 3 horas.
horas.
yeah, and we have to look at hours. 3 hours ago. Hace 3 horas. Sí, bien. An hour ago. Oh, and since an hour ago. So this is where we would make it a longer phrase with that word desde.
Desde hace.
Desde hace una hora.
Una hora, bien. A half hour ago.
Hace media hora.
Hace media hora. Notice these are all, it makes a certain amount of time that this happened, okay? A quarter of an hour ago.
Hace un cuarto de hora.
Yeah. Now, notice instead of cuarto de hora, quarter of an hour, people might just say literally, what's a quarter of an hour? How many minutes?
15.
15.
quarter,
So you
15.
might hear that expressed instead of cuarto de hora as hace 15 minutos. Just know,
15
hace
minutos,
15 minutos means the same thing as this. Okay? Bien? Oh, since 4 days ago, and we got to plug in the desde as well.
Desde hace 4
Desde hace 4 días.
días.
Bien, sí, yeah, desde hace 4 días. Oh,
Desde hace
perdón,
4
I hit
días.
the wrong one. Perdón, sorry about that. A day ago,
Hace un día.
hace un día. Hace un día, because we can't say una día, right? That's why the other one is wrong. Okay? Bien, a ver, 2 weeks ago,
Hace 2
Hace
semanas.
2 semanas.
right? And días wouldn't make sense because that's days, right?
Mhm.
Hace 2 semanas, bien. Since a week ago,
Hace
and we have to
Desde
plug in the
hace
days.
Desde
una
hace
semana.
una semana.
Desde hace una semana, bien, 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 okay. Since 5 months ago, we have to plug in the desde, just know that's as if it hangs in the back of the sentence.
Desde hace 5 meses.
5 meses because, right, meses is months and
Yeah.
semanas is weeks, right? Bien. A month ago,
Hace un mes.
Hace un mes.
hace un mes, bien. Since a year ago, we have to plug in the desde.
Desde hace un año.
Desde
Desde hacía,
Hace un año.
hacía un año.
hacía un año there, they did an hacía because it was an ago, a past idea. Don't worry about that too much. Since 4 minutes ago.
Desde hace 4 minutos.
Yeah, 4 minutos, because años is years, right? Oh, a century ago.
Hace un siglo.
Hace un siglo.
Ciclo.
Yeah, a century. Siglo is century, 100 years, right? Un año would be only one.
One. Mhm.
Hace un siglo.
Ciclo.
So this is just to give you an idea. Oh, a while ago.
Hace un rato.
Hace un rato. Here's an important thing to know. Un rato just means a while. And it's very vague. Yeah.
Un rato.
Like you say, oh, it's been a while. Yeah. Un rato, un rato means a short period of time. And is that vague? Well, yes.
Mhm.
But so is it in English. Hey, it's been a while. How long is that? I don't know, but a while, a short period of time is un rato. Rato has nothing to do with rats or mice or vermin of any kind. Yeah. Rato is what we call a false cognate. A false cognate. It doesn't mean rat, mouse, or any kind of vermin. Hace un rato. Hace un rato. Bien? Okay. So, bien. We're going to take that off now because we're up to our time. So that's just something to get you used to that idea. But I'll send you a whole slide thing that'll talk about hace
Great.
period of time. Okay. And then you're going to get little questions. And what you're going to be talking about is, my kids have been doing something for a certain amount of time. Now, if you got to look up, or I have been doing something for a certain amount of time, right? Your conversation question, right? Or what I've been doing for just a little while before coming into class. Okay, because you might exercise before you come to class. You might have a drink before you come. You might be finishing up work before you come to class, right? There might be many different things you're doing right before you come to class. So you're going to have a little slide set that'll talk about that, but you're all going to see hace, period of time, and then que, right? Hace, a period of time, and que. And your conversation questions will all revolve around that. Bien? So I'll give you a little bit of slides and then some questions to work on that and hace. The other thing I want you to prep for the coming week is we're going to finish up. We're also going to finish up with this last bit of these irregular yo verbs, this very tail end. And really it's going to be these two verbs here, saber and conocer, saber and conocer. Knowing when to use saber, meaning to know, and conocer, meaning to know. We group these two verbs together because they both mean to know, but we use them in different contexts. Yeah. And they're both oddly irregular for yo. So again, this ties into this little theme we had of verbs that are irregular only in the yo form. And look at that. All the other forms of saber are regular ER verbs. All the other forms of conocer are regular ER forms. But the yo forms for saber are weird. Se. Just that little short word, se. Saber is not sabo. You would think you take off the ER and it's sabo, but if you say sabo, somebody would be like, I don't know what you are talking about, right? Se is a yo form. So it's irregular just for yo, but it does sabe, sabemos, saben. Conocer similarly gets a weird form for yo. Conozco, conozco. It gets an S and a co. Sco, conozco, right? But conoces, conoce, conocemos, conocen. Okay. So to refresh your memory, saber is used in general to talk about knowing facts, plain old information, and how to do something. Okay. And I'll give you a little refresher video on that verb. Conocer is what we use to say we know people, human beings, or we're familiar with a place. We use it a lot to talk about. I know a place. And what that means is not that I can point to a map. Conocer has nothing to do with I can point to a map and show you where it is. Conocer means I know my way around a place, like I have physically been in this place. Okay. So we'll get a little bit of practice with both saber and conocer, a little refresher on that, because they're both irregular for yo, but we wind up using those two verbs a lot. So we'll finish up our tail end of hacer with time related conversation, and we'll practice a little bit with saber and conocer. ¿Está bien?
Está bien.
Está bien.
All good?
Yes.
Okay. Fantastico. And I know some of you have
Gracias.
to get up to work and do other things. So sí, que tengan buena semana, that you all may have a very good week. Bien, todo bien.
Gracias.
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 Muchas
De nada.
gracias.
Hasta
Qué
luego.
placer, qué placer. Bien.